Are you overprocessed, losing your hair, and looking for a new therapist? Well, the Stylist chair is where client confessions and declarations are made. The place where confusion is detangled, new shades of confidence is created, smudges are cleansed away, and edges are relaxed. Most importantly, it's the place where we gently cut away our unhealthy past and start the process of restoration, all in an effort to prevent further damage. My name is LYNN Thatcher, and I am your creative stylist, restorative hair care specialist, and confidence coach. While creating a culture that cultivates the mind, body, and soul, I advocate for being intentional in your pursuit of confidence and personal development. I specialize in unwrapping the layers of low self-esteem and depositing high volumes of confidence. Welcome to your scheduled appointment at From the Stylist Chair podcast, the place where we are building confidence one head at a time. The salon is now open and all walk-ins are welcome. So come on in and don't forget to grab a towel just in case you get some water in your eyes. Have a seat in my chair and let's talk hair. Hello and welcome to your weekly appointment at From the Stylist Chair podcast, the place where we are building confidence one head at a time. I am your host, LYNN Thatcher, and to all of my listeners, it is a pleasure to serve you today from the Stylist Chair. Today's topic is an experience that some of you may be familiar with, and many stylists know all too well. Today's topic, we are going to talk about being tenderheaded. So, if you're unfamiliar with what it means to be tenderheaded, it is a sensitivity or discomfort that is associated with the hair and the scalp. So for some people, literally the slightest bit of tug, pull, or whatever can cause some type of discomfort. I find that in some cases, you may have some people who, the tighter their curl pattern might be, the more sensitive they may be to certain things. And that's not all cases, but definitely in some cases. So any type of tension, pulling, tugging, brushing, anything like that, styles where your hair is being put in a ponytail or braiding, again, you have that discomfort, which may cause what we refer to as being tenderheaded. So I can remember, even now getting my locks retightened, but more so when I would get braids. And as a kid, it was just like, oh my God, like this hurt. Like, I won't go as far as saying it was torture for some people, maybe so. But definitely it hurts. And even as an adult, like getting my hair done from some of my friends, one of my stylist friends, she would just say, you're a stylist, you should grow out of this. I'm like, girl, how you gonna grow out of that? Either it hurt or it don't. And all I know is it hurt. And there are some days, again, even now with the locks, because it does not take much for me to feel that discomfort. I'm like halfway on the floor, and that is no lie. That is my confession for today, that I will be on the floor if there is too much tension. But like I said, it doesn't even take much for me. There are times when, depending on the level of attention, I literally will be sick to my stomach. Like I would feel nauseous if it is too much tension. So because of that, there are a lot of practices that I honestly do not do. I do not tie my hair up at night. Barely did it even, when I didn't have locks, when I wore my hair straight. I had to learn alternative methods that I could do to preserve the hairstyle without, wrapping my hair up or whatever. I don't know what it is. And like I said, it doesn't take much, but just the thought of the scarf being on my head, I don't know, touching my ears and just that little bit of snug, it would literally, the only words that I could use for it is, it stresses me out. So I stay away from it. And as much as I love ponytails, even that I have to be careful because to the average person, it may not be that tight, but yet it's still stressful for me. So anyway, I don't believe you grow out of it, but if y'all feel like you do, leave me a message in the comments and let me know what your experience with being tenderheaded has been. Did you grow out of it? Because some people say that they do. Or do you believe that that's not a thing? Do you believe that there's more tied to the fact that, someone like me, it doesn't take much tension for me to feel stressed out in that manner of that tugging and pulling? Like, is there something more connected to that maybe I may not be aware of? I don't know. So let me know in the comments what you all think about that. But when I think about the pain associated with being tenderheaded definitely can cause a lot of anxiety. And so, like I mentioned before, it can be extremely, extremely stressful. And so, it doesn't matter how gentle you are. It could just literally be the anticipation of what's to come, the anticipation of the pain or the potential of it causing stress could cause you to develop some anxiety around actually, having certain services done to your hair. And so my question to those of you who are listening is, why do we feel like we have to continuously put ourselves in situations that cause us so much pain and stress? Why do we feel like we need to do that? And more importantly, why do we put our children, and you all will hear me reference kids in a lot of the episodes, because I firmly believe that a lot of our challenges start from childhood. So why do we put our children through the pain of getting their hair done, all in the name of either they will grow out of it or they just have to get their hair done because you can't walk around with your hair all over your head? And so, will they grow out of it? Like I asked earlier, maybe or maybe not. But if you ask me, 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. For whatever reason. Just from my experience, 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. You may get a very small percentage that will, but for the most part, that sensitivity is that sensitivity. Like when you think about other ways or reasons that we experience pain, some people have a low tolerance for pain. So in knowing that they have a low tolerance for pain, there are some things that you are going to opt out of because of it. Now, I'm not speaking about those things that you're like, whether it's life or death or whatever, and you know that this is something that you have to endure to get to the end result. But it's those things that you do have control over. You know, why do we subject ourselves or even our kids to those things? And so my concern behind those choices is the trauma and the lasting effects tied to that. And that's something that I don't think we've thought too much about. And so the example is, I was working, and so I work in salon suites, and there was a child getting their hair done in a suite that wasn't necessarily close to mine. It was in a different part of the building. However, I could hear the process that was going on as it was going on. And so literally the child was crying, and she sounded like she was somewhere maybe between 8 and 10 years old, definitely old enough to be able to communicate her discomfort. And you could hear the stylist saying, you know, you have to get your hair done. And she's just crying, and they're trying to console her. And she literally hollered and she said, I told you I don't like this. And that did something to me. I feel like it was a wake-up call, and it actually did something to me, because I mean, in her pain, her frustration, her anxiety, I told you I don't like this. So in the back of her mind, why do you keep making me do this when this makes me uncomfortable and uneasy? But from the parent's position, for whatever reason, you can't go outside without your hair done, whether it was the holiday and, you know, it's Easter, it's Christmas, you know, whatever, you have to get your hair done. But these are the things that create some of these beauty standards that we then become adults and have to fight against. That if I don't look a certain way, then I'm not deemed presentable, or whatever the case may be. And so my question, as I'm listening to this situation unfold, I'm like, what are you teaching that child in that moment? You're teaching her that her opinion doesn't matter. You're teaching her to endure unnecessary pain. You're teaching her that in order to be considered pretty, because after the process, what do we say to the kid? See, look in the mirror, look, you look so pretty. Well, I'm sure she's having conflict in herself, because a part of her, when she looks in the mirror, she's like, well, yeah, because you see a lot of kids, they'll end up, you know, they'll get their smile back. But then the conflict is, but it hurt, and I don't want to keep doing this every time. So she has to endure something again that makes her uncomfortable. What you're also telling her is that her pain isn't real. Oh, it doesn't hurt that bad. Like, what? It hurt. What do you mean it doesn't hurt that bad? And you're not the one having to endure the discomfort. And so what you're also telling her is that you are invalidating her feelings. So her feelings now does not matter. And so how does that, so let me back up. So I know you're like, but Corey, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, how can you meet that child in the middle? Maybe ask her, well, how do you like to wear your hair? in our community, we grew up hearing, you don't have any say so, which is a whole other topic. You don't have a say so. I'm going to tell you how to wear your hair, what to wear, and blah, 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 until I feel like you're old enough to make those decisions for yourself, right? So again, a whole different topic. But you can start to create, you can cultivate some independence in a kid even that young without giving them a broad, spectrum of, that freedom, for lack of a better word. So how would you like to wear your hair? Maybe that child simply only wants that hair put up in a ponytail and wearing that Afro puff, and that's it. And if that is going to keep you from being stressed out as well as that child stressed out, by all means, if she got to wear that ponytail for the next 5 years, you may not like it per se because you want to see her in something different, but it will make everybody's life easier. And then the other piece of it that people don't think about is, I can't speak for other stylists. I can only speak for myself. And I don't do very many kids anymore. However, that is very stressful for the stylist as well. It can create anxiety even within that stylist. Now, there may be stylists that it doesn't faze them, but I know for me, there are times where I want to just say, you know what? Take them home. Take them home and bring them back when they are ready. And so even as I started to transition out of doing a lot of kids, when people would ask, well, do you do kids? And my number one question is, how are they when they're getting their hair done? Like, if they're not ready, then my answer is going to be no. If you know that every time that child sits down to get their hair done, and it is going to be a whole dramatic effect, then my answer is I mentally cannot do it. I've had my fair share, and the way our salon suites are set up, you can kind of walk in a circle around here, and there has been times where I have said, I'll be right back. Put my tools down, and I have walked a couple laps just to kind of help myself to calm down a little bit and then go back to it. And I've even had to have the kids say, you know what? You get up and take a break. We're going to do this in sections. We're going to start with a little bit. You get up and go take a break, and then you come back. And because of the way I work, I could no longer accommodate that, because it then cuts into the rest of my schedule, to be able to provide timely services. So for me, that it barely worked for me then, but I couldn't continue to operate like that for my own, emotional well-being, and just from being able to provide a quality service standpoint. And so back to what is it that we actually are teaching a child when we allow those types of things to happen without considering how they personally feel. Later, what you end up doing is, as an adult, what happens as the result of it when they become an adult, you have things like they suppress their feelings. Well, my feelings aren't going to be validated anyway. And, if I told them that I don't like this and this bothers me, then, they're not going to hear me. So why even tell them? And I've been that person in my younger years. I have ideas about how and why that started, not being given a voice or being allowed to even have a voice in certain situations. So then when you become an adult, it makes you timid. It makes you, and even actually before becoming an adult, because that's what you're grooming from a kid. You're grooming that type of individual, because we forget that kids are going to be adults longer than they are children. You know, one of my cousins used to tell me that all the time, that her aunt told her that, remember, you're raising an adult. You're not raising a child. You're raising someone who's eventually going to be an adult, and they're going to spend more of their days being an adult than they are being a child. And we don't keep that in mind, you know, when it comes to a lot of the things that we do. So you're teaching them to suppress their feelings, or you have the total opposite spectrum where once they do become old enough to make their own decisions, they become rebellious. You know, I'm just gonna shave it all off. Or, you know, or even when you get into the mental health aspect of it, if it has affected their mental health because of it, you know, then I'm not combing my hair at all. And then, you know, they're walking around with whatever, you know, you can go down the rabbit hole with that. But hopefully you understand the point that I am trying to make, that what seems small, or things that we may not have considered, how in the long run, how it ends up affecting our mental and emotional health, how it affects our relationships later, how it affects our ability, you know, to make, you know, certain decisions in life. There are so many things tied to these choices, or the things that we even, you know, not only make our kids do, but just even situations that we allow ourselves to be in. And so, you know, going forward, if you are the type of individual that, you know, struggles to speak up for yourself, to make sure that your voice is being heard, or, you know, to tell somebody, I don't like this, or this makes me uncomfortable, or, you know, when you say this to me, it makes me feel like, you know, whatever. I can remember in being in relationships, and, you know, if I tell somebody, you know, no, don't do that, I said no, or don't say that to me, or I don't like that, then, you know, I've gotten, you being mean. Well, that's a manipulative tactic, but again, that's another topic. But I say that to say you also have to be aware of how other people are using certain things to control how you feel, what you say, how you think, which further prevents you from being able to express yourself and communicate how you feel. And so hopefully from this episode, you know, it will help you to kind of not only put some things into perspective, but just take a look at what you allow, what you have allowed, and why you have allowed it, and start to put some things in practice so that you can kind of build your confidence up enough to not be, or put yourself in a position to be, experience the effects of being tenderheaded. And honestly, we can go in so many different directions as it pertains to this topic of being tenderheaded. But today, that is the thing that I just want you to kind of think about. And if you want to hear more, on this topic, if it made you think about, some other ways that even something like that could have affected you, please share it so we can kind of maybe have the discussion a little further, because from the Stylist chair, we are definitely all about furthering the conversation, having solution-driven conversations as well as, edifying and confident conversations. So I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for joining me for another episode of From the Stylist Chair, where we are building confidence one head at a time. Be sure to catch us again next week. And if you are not following us on social media, you can currently follow us at Color Yourself Confident. See you next week at your next appointment.